In a village where trust was fragile, one man's honesty was put to the ultimate test. When accused of theft he did not commit, Edo stood firm against false tongues and deceit. This is the story of truth, courage, and the treasures that no gold can buy. In the town of Uromi, there lived a beggar named Edo. He was poor, but he was very honest. He did not lie, he did not steal, and he did not take more than he needed. People knew him because he always said, "Truth is food for the soul." Every morning, Edo swept the front of the market before the women came to sell. He picked up leaves, pushed away sand, and made the place clean. He did this even when his stomach rumbled from hunger. The market women liked him and sometimes gave him leftover yam or a small bowl of gari. One day, the king of Uromi announced a big festival. There would be drumming, dancing, and wrestling. Visitors would come from many towns. The king said, "Let our town be neat and safe." Two strangers entered the town just before the festival. They wore fine clothes and shiny slippers. They spoke with sweet tongues and smiled a lot, but their eyes were sharp like knives. The strangers saw Edo sweeping the market. "Good man," one said, "you work with no pay?" Edo smiled. "This is my home. I want it clean. It is my little gift." The strangers nodded and exchanged a quick look. Later that day, the strangers went to the palm wine tapper, Papa Osato. They bought 2 big gallons of wine and paid with a gold coin. The tapper was surprised and happy. "Ha, you are rich travelers," he said. In the evening, Edo sat by the well and drank water. A little girl named Awili came to him. She said, "Mama sent me to thank you for helping carry her firewood." Edo bowed his head. "Your mother is kind to me. I will always help." Unknown to Edo, the strangers were watching him from the shadows. "He is liked by the people," said the first stranger. "That will make our plan easier," said the second. They left quietly like lizards sleeping behind a wall. On the festival morning, the town square was bright with color. Men beat drum, women sang, children ran and laughed. Edo stood behind the crowd smiling. He loved the joy, even if he owned nothing. The 2 strangers visited the king with a gift. They carried a wooden chest with heavy iron locks. They said, "Great king, we bring you treasure from far away." The chest dumped. When they set it on the ground, the king's eyes widened. "What treasure is this?" The strangers bowed. "Gold, dust, and carved ivory for your festival." They opened the chest just a little to show bright glitter. The crowd gasped. The light was like a small sunrise. The king thanked them and ordered the palace guards to keep the chest safe. He told the strangers, "You will be honored at the feast." They bowed again. smiling like cats near milk. But their plan had only begun. At night, while the moon hung like a clean calabash, the strangers snuck back to the chest. They had a second chest that looked the same. They switched the king's heavy chest with their empty one. Then they covered the empty chest with a cloth and left it in the storeroom. As they tiptoed away, they saw Idu sleeping by the kitchen wall. He was tired from cleaning the square after the dancers left. The first stranger whispered, "Perfect, we will blame him." The second stranger nodded. Before dawn, the strangers ran to the palace gate shouting, "Thief! Thief!" The guards jumped up, grabbing their spears. The strangers pointed to where Idu slept. The beggars stole the king's treasure and hid it, they cried. The guards shook Idu awake. He blinked and sat up. "What is happening?" "You will answer to the king," our guard said. Idu looked confused, but did not fight. At the palace court, the strangers told their story. They said they saw Idu moving the treasure chest at night. They said he hid it somewhere outside the walls. They said the empty chest in the storeroom proved it. The king frowned. "Idu, what do you say?" Idu bowed. "My king, I did not touch the treasure. I slept all night by the kitchen wall." The first stranger laughed softly. "A clever lie." The second added, "He is always near the palace. He knows every corner." The crowd murmured. Some people whispered, "Idu is honest. He won't not do this." Others said, "But he is poor. Maybe hunger pushed him." The air felt heavy like a storm. The king said, "We will search the town. If we found the treasure with Idu, he will be punished." The guards searched every place Idu knew. They looked under baskets, inside sheds, behind wood piles. They found nothing. The strangers then said, "We saw him take it to the old ant hill near the mango farm." So the guards and the king's chief walked to the farm with half the town following. Idu walked behind, quiet but steady. He whispered a prayer, "Let truth walk before me." At the ant hill, the strangers ran ahead and pointed. "There!" shouted one. The guards dug around the ant hill with sticks. Soon they struck wood. A chest lay within, hidden under dry leaves. The chest looked like the king's chest. The locks were the same. The iron looked the same. The chief opened it with a palace key, and the locks clicked. Inside lay shiny coins and carved ivory. The crowd cried out. The chief turned to Idu. "This is strong proof." Idu felt his knees tremble. "I did not put it there," he said, his voice small. The strangers looked at each other with satisfied eyes. The king spoke slowly. "Idu, I have always heard you are honest. But what can I do with such evidence?" Idu swallowed and bowed his head. My king, please give me time to find the truth. By sunset tomorrow, said the king, if you cannot bring truth, you will be banished from Uromi for 10 seasons. Words fell like stones. Edo walked away thinking hard. He sat under an udala tree and watched ants march in a line. He remembered the chest in the storeroom was empty. How can an empty chest become full? He asked himself. Awele, the little girl, ran to him with a small roasted yam. Uncle Idu, eat. Mama says you must keep strength. Idu smiled weakly and ate. Food gave him a little courage. He went to Papa Osato, the pan wine tapper. Papa, did you see anyone near the palace storeroom last night? The old man scratched his bears. I saw 2 shadows past the path at midnight. They wore fine slippers, but did not crunch the sand. Edo listened closely. Edo then visited the blacksmith, Ogedegbe. Ogedegbe, can 2 chests look the same but be different? The blacksmith nodded. Yes, look at the hinge pins. A careful eye can tell. He showed Edo how one hinge pin was smooth and round, while another style had a tiny flat edge. Edo ran to the palace storeroom with the chief's permission. He looked at the empty chest. He looked at the hinge pins. They were smooth and round, but the chest at the anthill had flat-edged pins. He whispered, remembering the quick flash when it was opened. He told the chief, please come with me to see the chest again. The chief agreed, curious about this calm beggar. They returned to the farm with 2 guards. Edo pointed to the chest hinges. The chief bent low and peered closely. He saw the tiny flat edges. He stood up, eyes sharp now. This is not the same chest as in our storeroom. The guards looked surprised. Edo said, my king must hear this. They carried the chest back to the palace. The chief placed it beside the empty chest. Now everyone could compare the hinges, the iron corners, and the wood grain. The king studied both chests. He called the blacksmith to speak. Ogedegbe explained the inch pins and the small differences. The whole grew silent as hot soup. The king turned to the strangers. Explain. The first stranger's mind cracked. The second stranger's hands hooked. They tried to speak, but their words tripped over each other. The chief said, we must search their lodge. The guards ran to the small house where the stranger slept. Under a mat, they found the real palace chest, heavy and locked. Inside was the king's treasure, untouched. The crowd shouted with anger, but the king lifted his hand. He said, truth has returned to its seat. Edu is innocent. The strangers were taken away to face judgment for their trick. Everyone looked at Edu with new respect. The king said to Edu, you save the honor of this festival. Ask for any reward. Edo bowed very low. My king, I am only happy that truth is clear. I do not need gold. Please, let the palace spare more food for the poor. The king smiled. Your heart is good. I will do more than that. On that day, the king told the town, we will build a small house where the poor can sleep safely. We will make a food store for them. He gave Edo the job to keep the place clean and fair. Edo was given new clothes and a small room. By the gates, everyone clapped for him. But the story does not end there. Edo became famous for his honesty. People from other towns came to see him and learn his ways. Some brought gifts, some brought promises, and some brought tricks. A trader from a far place came with a bunch of bright stones. He said, Edo, keep these safe until I return. If they are still here, I will pay you well. Edo kept the pouch in a clay pot under his bed. He told no one. 3 nights later, the trader returned with 2 friends. He said, give me my pouch. Edo brought it out and placed it on the table. When the trader opened it, he screamed, thief! Half my stones are gone. Edo was shocked. How? I never touched the pouch. The 2 friends shouted, we must search his room. They looked everywhere and found nothing. Still, the trader pointed at Edo and said, you have tricked me. The king called another hearing. The trader swore by the river that he had left the pouch full. Edo swore by the same river that he had not opened it. The court was confused. Hawele's mother, Mama Ede, stepped forward. She said, my king, allow me to speak. She sold beads and knew many trading tricks. The king nodded. Mama Ede held the pouch to the light. She shook it gently and listened. Then she said, this pouch has a false bottom stitched with fine thread. She pulled at a tiny knot and opened a hidden space. Inside the first bottom lay the missing bright stones. The crowd gasped again, like fish popping from water. Mama Ede said, the trader planned to trap Edo, then demand payment. The trader's face fell like a broken pot. The king asked, why won't you do this? The trader said, because Edo refused to ask for reward. I wanted to show he would be forced to beg for himself. The king shook his head. Evil cannot teach good. The trader and his friends were sent away from the town. The next morning, a storm came. Rain heavy like drums. The little house for the poor began to leak. Edo climbed the roof to face the thatched. The wind pushed him and he slipped. He fell to the ground and hurt his leg badly. He could not walk for many days. His small savings went into herbs and food. He had nothing again, not even his new sandals. Some people whispered, how can an honest man lose everything again? Others said, maybe honesty is not enough in this world. Edo heard them, but he kept quiet. He watched the sky and waited for healing. When his leg was better, he returned to work with a cane. He cleaned the house, shared food, and smiled at the poor. He had no sandals, no fine clothes now, but his eyes were peaceful. One evening, the king visited the house quietly. He saw Idu giving his own yam to an old woman with shaking hands. He saw Idu feast a bed for a crying child. He saw Idu sit last to eat, and only a little. The king said, Idu, why did you not ask for help when you fell? Idu bowed. My king, others needed help more than me. I had a roof, I had water, I could wait. The king was moved. He felt a warm wind in his heart. The next day, the king called the town together again. He said, Idu has lost everything once more, but not his goodness. He gave Idu a new home beside the food store. He gave him a helper to carry heavy loads. The town women brought mats and cooking pots. The hunters brought meat, the farmers brought yams, children brought smiles and songs. Idu thanked everyone. He said, I did not keep truth to gain things. I kept truth because it is right. He promised to care for the poor with fairness. He promised to keep his heart clean. Years passed. Sometimes Idu had plenty, sometimes he had little, sometimes he lost things, sometimes he found things, but he never lost his honesty. When travelers asked, why did the honest beggar lose everything? The elders answered, because storms do not choose who they visit. They added, but honesty gave him friends, and friends helped him rise again. The children nodded, learning as they listened. Awele grew tall and strong. She helped Idu count food bags and keep records in a small book. She learned to watch for tricks like false buttons and fake smiles. Idu called her my wise star. One last test came during a drought. Food became scarce and the food store was almost empty. People whispered, let us hide some bags for our families. Idu said, no, we must share fairly or the town will break. Some men planned to rush the store at night. Awele heard them talking near the well. She ran to Idu and told him everything. Idu thanked her and went to the king. The king set a fair plan. Each family would take a small portion every 2 days. He opened the palace barns and shared his own grain. He posted guards but also opened the square for cooking together. Hunger was hard, but unity was stronger. After the drought, rain returned and crops grew again. The town held a Thanksgiving dance. Idu sat quietly at the back, smiling at the drums. He wore simple clothes and old sandals. The king called him to the front. He placed a light necklace of coral on Idu's neck. He said, you lost everything many times, but you kept truth. This is real wealth. The crowd cheered until the drum seemed to laugh. Idu lifted his hands and spoke softly. Listen, children, you may be poor like I was. You may fall like I did. But if you hold truth, you will stand again. And when you stand, help others rise too. There are moral lessons that we can learn from this beautiful story. Honesty does not stop storms, but it gives you friends who help you rise. Do not judge by quick proof. Look closely for the small signs of truth. Kindness is a better reward than gold. Share fairly in hard times. Unity keeps our town alive. Ask for help when you need it, but also look for those who need help more. Real words is a clean heart and a trustworthy name. Thank you so much, viewers and subscribers, for watching. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.